in spectacles?
Shall I go first?
Go.
I am Christine Kavanagh, and I play Sybil Birling, Mrs. Birling, who is the matriarch of the family, in a fab frock, and she's a bit of a monster. That's me.
And my mother. I am George Rowlands. I play Eric Birling, your son.
My beloved son.
Your beloved. Oh, that's quite nice. And yes, and Eric is a bit of a drunk, I will say, without spoiling too much. He's done some things that he would rather not have done, and is consumed by them.
Basically, an Inspector Calls is about moral choices. And it sounds quite serious, but in fact it's a thriller, it's a whodunit. The audience usually on the edge of their seats. It's got an amazing set, but it's got an underlying message, which is that basically we are all one community, we're all responsible for each other, and we need to look out for each other. And the inspector creeps into the lives of this. We are an extremely wealthy family, and we're very entitled. And he comes in to say, you might be rich, you might be entitled, but you still have flaws. And he questions their choices. And in that questioning, they have to analyse their lives. And but it gets extremely exciting, and I'm not sure that they do learn any lessons. But it's a perfect show for right now. It's about inequality. The person who's died in the show that we have to look out for, Eva Smith, she only asked for some more money. Then she was assaulted, then she was sacked, and then she dies. And the consequences of those actions are what we deal with. But it's a roller coaster.
Yeah, and I've got just jumping on that as well with the strikes. There are strike actions.
Yeah.
So it definitely, you're right. It definitely feels very relevant.
It's relevant for today, absolutely. Yeah. And it seems to speak to every generation. The Me Too movement, strikes, inequality. But every time that you talk about play, which was a wonderful play by Priestley, it's lasted a long time because it's a classic. People think, oh, it's very serious. It's not. There are some very funny moments. And Stephen Daldry has taken what can be described as like it could be a dull play. He's taken it and shaken it. And so when you come, we have fireworks, we have collapses, we have extraordinary costumes, an award-winning set. So the whole thing is a sort of firecracker of a show. Obviously, we have no interval. It's very, very fast-paced, isn't it? Yeah. Too fast for us sometimes.
Depends on the day.
I mean, you mentioned that it resonates with a lot that's happening now. Do you think that's why it's so kind of fresh and why people resonate with so much and they keep on coming back to see it?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's the reason it's gone on for 30 years. I think 30 years now. This is the 30th anniversary. So, yes. I mean, at its base, it's a story about a lady in help, and she doesn't get it from people that are in a position to give it. So that is age old. I feel like that could go on for another 30 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, for many, an Inspector Calls is basically the first experience people have in the theatre since it's added to the GCSE syllabus.
Exactly.
What's it like working on such a production like that?
Well, it's fantastic to work on it because we're reminded, Simon Reynolds, who is in our production as a production manager, has been in since the beginning. He says the same thing. He says, remember that this will be the first experience some kids have seen of theatre. Might be their last, I hope not. And but Stephen Daldry, I mean, that's what we were saying. We were rehearsing with him in the Holloway Road a few months ago. He doesn't do boring. So if you come and see this show, I can guarantee you one thing: you will not be bored. You will be jaw dropped at a certain moment. There's a coup de théâtre that happens with the set. But basically, he believes in great theatre, but he doesn't want to do dull. So that's why I think it's
and really, that's a really good point because for GCSE texts, I think these. Well, I felt when I was doing it that it's a little bit. It can feel like you kill the story when you're sitting in a classroom and you're studying it. Yeah.
It comes alive.
So it definitely comes alive. It's a great opportunity to take something that could be just a GCSE thing. Yeah. And make it like a lived experience in theatre live.
And you said that obviously it's very fast paced and the set is almost has like a life of its own. I mean, what is it like working with such an iconic set?
Well, it's a challenge.
Yes, for some more than others.
Yeah, for some more than others.
There's some athleticism going
Yeah, there's cobblestones, and it's on a rake, which means it's on an incline, and your theatre isn't on any incline. So it's slightly like skiing on cobblestones in high heels with an 8-foot train dress and a bustle and a comedy wig.
And that's
It's
just
not a
me.
comedy wig, and that's just you. Yeah. So that can be a challenge. Oh, we're rained on, there's fireworks. I mean, literally, we've got everything but the kitchen sink in it. And it's
Smashing glass.
smashing glass, crockery. Yeah, we've got the lot.
Does it have a name? Does the set have a name?
Does the set
Good
have a
question.
name?
I feel like it should have a name.
It should.
you know.
We should name
Well,
it right now.
I could share a secret actually, which is from the actor who plays my husband, Jeffrey Harmon, plays Mr. Birling. When we get into the house, and again, the house is a tiny, tiny house. We're very, very rich in a tiny, tiny house, which looks like a doll's house, doesn't it? And it's bursting out of a crater. And we're high up on stilts. And when we go in it to start the show, we're in our finery. What you don't know, audience, is we're in the house of fear. That's what he calls it, because you never know what's going to happen. So you said there was a ghost here, maybe in this theatre.
Yeah.
Well, there's not a
It's
ghost
all
in that,
linked.
but we
Haunted
get
house.
the fear sometimes in the little house, don't we?
House of Fear, or we could call it Shirley.
Shirley, shall we call it Shirley? Okay.
It's more affectionate.
Okay. Well, let's do that. Let's do that.
Brilliant. And what do you think? What lessons can be learned from from anybody who wants to go and watch the spectacles, and what happens in there?
Well, you've said a lot of the stuff already. I think in terms of that responsibility that you have for your fellow people, which is something that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But I think additional to that, there's something about family. I mean, if you really kind of peel back all the class layers and all that stuff, it does have a story about how to treat members of family and what bonds you together. And even though these characters are sort of being split apart, there is still something, I think, that binds them together in the way that it's staged even. And so, yeah, there's exactly. I think there's something in there that I found. I mean, as an actor, like the way that it talks about family does. It's interesting, the kind of responsibility you have in that front.
And it makes people question themselves too. But the inspector says it, and particularly right now, everyone is struggling right now in this country, cost of living, Ukraine, everything. And the inspector has a speech which has not dated, which he says, we are not alone. We are one society. We are all responsible for each other. If only the current situation, everyone did feel one society, then we might have a better life. But that's the message, and that's timeless, which is ultimately we need to look out for each other. We do, as a cast.
Absolutely.
We look out for each other, and we look out for the audience. But even though it sounds sort of academic about the play, it's just basically a good night out. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And that leads me on then. I mean, for anyone who hasn't seen in any form, like the film or the series or the play, and the spectacles, why should they come and see it while it's here in Cardiff?
Well, I hadn't.
You haven't.
I hadn't seen the film. I had read it. I had read the play.
So why would you come and see this production?
Well, I think it's a thriller. I like a thriller. Again, it's what you're touching on, what you said. But it's the way that that somebody in power comes in from an unknown origins, like Doctor Who-esque, comes in and just sort of rips apart this family household. It is, I think, just fundamentally on a dramatic level. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating.
It's a thriller.
Yeah.
It's a thriller, and it's got an extra special moment of theatre with the set, which is worth the price of admission, for sure.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We saw yesterday; it was fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Best luck with everything, and thank you for talking to us.
No worries. Thank you very much.